Alright, on this video we're going to be looking at our first type of interest, which is simple interest. So if we go to our formula chart, we're going to be using this formula chart throughout our Math of Finance. We can see that we have simple interest formulas right here. And we're primarily going to be working with this first one, which is I equals P times R times T. So at the bottom it tells you what everything stands for, and we also went over it in our definition. So I is the interest, P is the principal, or the amount of money you put in, the rate will be the interest rate, and then T will be time in years. So to get the interest, we just have to multiply those three together. All right, so let's take a look at our first simple interest problem. You invest $10,000 for 5 years at 2.5% simple interest. How much interest will be earned, and what is the future value at the end of 5 years? Okay, so if we mark some of these things down, the principal is the amount that we're investing, so that'll be $10,000. 5 years, that's going to be our time. This is going to be our rate. Now remember, for the rate, we do have to change it to a decimal. So if we move it 2 places to the left, that's going to be 0.025, and we want to be careful not to round that. Alright, so if we use our simple interest formula, okay, so all of your Math of Finance, you're going to show the formula, the plugged in numbers, and the answer. Okay, so I'm going to write that at the top. Show formula, plugged in values, and then the answer. Okay, so in this case we're looking for the interest. So we're going to do 10,000 times a rate of 0.025 times 5. Now this one isn't too hard to do on the calculator, but as we go through all of our Math of Finance, I'm going to show you how to enter it on the calculator. So that'll just be 10,000 times 0.025 times 5. And we get 1,250. Now this is money, so we'll go ahead and put a $sign on there. So this is basically how much money you made off of your investment. Now it also asks for future value. So if we go back to our formula chart, S is future value. So let's mark that. And this formula makes a whole lot of sense if you think about it. So at the end of your investment, you'll still have the $10,000 you invested, but you'll also have your interest on top of that. So this is always going to be principal plus interest. And it's at the top of the page because this is true for any type of interest. So we'll say S equals P plus I. So our future value is going to be the $10,000 that we initially invested plus the 1,250 you got in interest, and that gives us a future value of $11,250. Alright, so this one is future value. Alright, so that's how much money you'll have in that account at the end of your 5 years, and this is your interest. So that's how much money you made off of your $10,000. Alright, so let's say you lend $500 to a friend for 15 months at 4% simple interest. How much will your friend have to repay you at the end of the 15 months, and how much interest did you earn? So notice right here where it says how much will your friend have to repay to you, that's going to be future value. That's going to be the total amount that they have to pay back. They're going to pay you back the $500 plus the interest. Alright, so let's kind of mark off what we have here. We're lending $500, so that's going to be P. Now here's 15 months, but remember that time has to be in years. So for time, we're going to do 15 divided by 12, and that's because there are 12 months in a year. And that comes out to be 1.25. And then remember our rate, that's going to be written as a decimal, so R is going to be 0.04. Alright, so let's take our formula, I equals PRT. So we're going to do 500 times the time in years, which is 1.25. If you put in the 15, it'll give you interest for 15 years instead of 15 months. And I actually did that backwards. I should have put the R in first. Those should actually be flipped, but it doesn't really matter. All right, so when I put that into the calculator, 500 times 1.25 times 0.04. And so the interest is $25. So this is how much money you're going to make for loaning your friend $500. So interest. And then remember, future value is your S. So it's the amount that you loan to the friend. He's going to pay that back plus the 25 in interest. So my cat is knocking things off the desk because that is what cats do. All right. So in total, your friend's going to pay you back $525. And that's how much he's going to repay. My cat's about to come visit. Here she comes. All right, so let's look at number 3. How long does it take for an investment of $100 at 4% simple interest to grow to be $150? Okay, so let's think about what we know. We know that our investment is $100. That's going to be our principal. So we know that P is 100. And we know we have a 4% interest rate, so we know that R is 0.04. And we know after a certain amount of time, we want it to be worth 150. So 150 is actually future value. So if I want to use my formula that I've been using, if I want to use I equals PRT, in this case I'm trying to find time because it asks how long does it take. I have P and I have R, but I don't have I. So if we think about our formula that we had, S equals P plus I, we know the future value is 150 and we know the principal is 100. So it's pretty easy to look at that and say, you know what, to make that true, my I has to be 50. So I know if it went from 100 to 150 that I got $50 in interest. So I'm going to put the 50 here. I'm going to put the 100 times the 0.04, but I don't know the time, so I'm going to put the time here. All right, so if we multiply 100 times 0.04, that just gives us 4. So I get 50 equals 4t, and then if I divide both sides by 4, 50 divided by 4 gives me, I don't know how well y'all can see that, 12.5. So t comes out to be 12.5, and remember that is going to be years. So if you're starting with a very small amount of money, it's going to take a really long time for you to make that $50. All right, let's look at number 4. You're tired at the end of the term. Here comes my cat. All right, baby. She's so curious. She has to be part of this. All right. You're tired at the end of the term and you decide to borrow $500 to go on a trip to whatever land. You go to the bank and borrow the money at 5.5% simple interest for 2 years. We want to find the interest that you'll pay on the loan and how much will you have to pay back at the end of the 2 years. So for part A, we're trying to find the interest. And for part B, how much will we have to pay back? Here we're trying to find future value. All right, so we have our formula, I equals PRT. So let's see, our principal is going to be 500. That's how much we're borrowing. That's P. Our rate is going to be 5.5%, but we do have to change that to a decimal. And then our time is already in years, and that's going to be our T. All right, so if we plug all that in, we're going to get 500. So when we move our decimal 2 places to the left, we get 0.055, and then we're going to multiply that by 2. All right, so if I put all that in, 500 times 0.055 times 2, we come out with $55. All right, so that's how much it's going to cost you to borrow that money. And then, of course, when you pay the bank back, you have to pay back the $500 that you borrowed, plus the $55 in interest. And so your future value comes out to be $555. So that's the amount that you would have to pay back to the bank.